Hello, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast, the ultimate podcast for serious real estate investors in the know. Join your host, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills, as they share their expert insights, strategies, and tips to help you succeed in the world of real estate investing. Get ready to level up your investment game with the Investor Guys Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills.
And we are back with another episode of the Investor Guys Podcast. Bill, how's it going?
It is doing wonderful, my friend. Hope you had a great weekend.
I had a great weekend, and you know what? We chattered a bunch before we started all this, but we did not talk about what we were going to talk about today.
I got a couple of things. One, I wanted to make sure you're recording, right? Not me today, or?
Yes, I am recording.
Okay. So, a little small detail there. One of the things that we wanted to touch base on, we had talked about this some during our LLC, Limited Partnership Corporations show, that we started talking about tax deductibility and the things that you can deduct from as a business expense. And so I think we ought to do some of that today.
Okay. Yeah, that actually plays into the conversation that we just had before we went on the air. So one of the things that Bill and I were talking about was vacation rentals. And we've talked about, we did a whole show on vacation rentals. And that was one of the things I was doing over the weekend. So we were asking each other what, each of us had been up to. Bill was out, womanizing and drinking and having a great time. And I was working. One of the things that is awesome about having vacation rentals in places where you don't live is you have a vacation home. Now, traditionally, if you have a vacation home, that thing sits empty for months, maybe half the year, maybe even more. And it just sits there empty. And then you pay a bunch of money to get on an airplane or get in the car and go there for the time that you're going to spend for your vacation there. And then it sits empty again. If you have a vacation rental that you're renting specifically to others to enjoy that vacation rental, you still have access to that rental. But now when you go and visit your investment, it is a tax write-off. So the amount of money that you spend for your plane ticket, for your food, for any other expenses when you travel to your vacation home is now a tax write-off. It's not a deduction, okay? It actually comes off against what you owe the IRS on profit if you have an LLC or a corporation or an entity. There's other ways to do it as a sole proprietor. It's not as great, but there are other ways to do it. But you have all kinds of tax benefits that you can use when you have investments, but when you have an entity that you use for your investments, even more so. What are some of the other things that people can use as a tax? I've got another great one, but I'm going to let you chime in here and we'll see if it's the same.
Well, one of the fun things that I've done through the years when I've been teaching classes is I've had two IRS auditors sit through my classes at different times. And so a lot of times I'll ask at the beginning of the class, hey, who are my real estate agents in here? Who are my CPAs? Who are my engineers? Who are my attorneys? Do we have anybody from the IRS? And so, and in two classes, I've had people raise their hand. Oh, great. Introduce yourself. Tell me what you do. And it was, we're auditors, or I'm an auditor. Oh, like, great. Okay. So, and I gave both of them permission. I said, look, if I say anything about tax deduction that is incorrect, then I want you to raise your hand and tell me, and let's share it with the class. Let's get me correct and make sure the class is correct right then, so it doesn't slip by. And one of them went through the whole weekend and came up afterwards and went, "Wow, I was amazed on the." And I spend a specific. It's not all about taxes, obviously, it's about real estate. But I spend about a half hour talking about taxation, and so I was pretty amazed that you went through that entire half hour and didn't say a single thing that I thought was incorrect. And of course, I warn people and suggest to people all the time, just like I'm going to do now, that you have a competent tax professional. When you start getting in this business, you want to have somebody else doing your taxes. You don't want to be doing them. and you want to have somebody competent. Same thing with legal advice. You want to make sure that, now, even though Kevin and I may say some things that are legal, we will remind you we're not attorneys. You should get that from a real estate attorney or a corporate attorney if you're looking at structure, or asset protection attorney, whatever it happens to be.
Or prepaid legal, just to put in a pitch for prepaid legal. I don't sell it or anything else, but awesome thing to have if you're just getting started. Look into prepaid legal, and there's some other companies just the same. You can get legal advice from them as well at a discount.
So one of the things that I would do with class, and still do it, is I would ask, okay, name me something that you think you can't get tax deductible, and we'll figure out a way to make it deductible. And I've had some pretty unique comments through the years based on that one question. But my favorite was, I had a guy that said, I'd like to be able to deduct my vasectomy I have coming up. I was like, oh, okay, well, now, so here's, did you have
an answer for that one?
Do I?
Did you have an answer for that one?
It did catch me off guard for a second. And this is one of them that happened during when I had one of the auditors in the class. And I said, look, here's the thing. And I kind of roll that to the end, because there's a catch-all that you can use that covers anything. And that is, if it's not directly deductible. So a lot of people say, oh, I'd like to deduct wardrobe. Well, you can't deduct wardrobe. Oh, it's my uniform. Yeah, they don't believe that. If you have a company shirt that's got your company name on it, you can get away with saying that's my uniform. You can't go out and buy a nice suit or a nice dress and say that's my uniform and get away with it.
There is a loophole for that.
That's a toughie.
There is a loophole for that. You can have tags. You can have your company's tags sewn into your clothes, and then it becomes company outfit. And if the company pays for it, and it has the company tags inside of it, they own it. It's theirs, and it is an expense that they get to write off pre-tax.
There you go. There you go. So we'll get into writing off your vasectomy when we get back from the break. It is time for our commercial break here. So we'll be right back with more Investor Guys podcast. Hang around. We'll have some fun.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Awaken your potential and harness the strengths of your inner self. Online courses that you complete at your own pace. Set and achieve all of your goals. Packed with an ever-growing catalog of information, resources, learning programs, weekly recorded coaching sessions, podcast, posts and more to keep you on track. For your best life. Because the only person who can guarantee your success is you. www.reallyKevin.com.
You are watching the Investor Guys podcast.
The Investor Guys podcast will be back shortly. Absolution X. Lifestyle apparel like no other. Only at absolutionx.com. Get yours. Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
All right, and we are back, and I've been on pins and needles through that entire break. I want to know how we write off the vasectomy. Not that I'm planning on getting one or anything.
Good,
but,
yeah.
Just in case, you know.
My ex asked me years ago, would I get a vasectomy? And I was like, no. She's like, why? And I'm like, hey, God may need to call on me like he did Abraham. I want to be ready. She's like, not funny. And I'm like, yeah, neither is vasectomy. But look, I'm not ever going to agree to have a man with a knife voluntarily go to that area. Not going to happen. So back to the question in class about writing off a vasectomy. So the blanket answer that you can use literally for anything, Kev, great stuff on being able to buy clothes and have your own tags sewn into them. And look, if you go to a custom clothier anyway, I've bought a lot of custom clothes through the years. You know, they'll sew in made expressly for, and so instead of having your personal name put in there, you can have your company name. That's slick. I like that. And then again, it becomes an expense of the company, not of you. So it becomes deductible as a corporate expense at that point. But you can also create a bonus structure for you as a participant in the corporation. Now, here's the key thing. If you do any kind of bonus structure, you have to make that available for everyone in the corporation. Now, most of us are small business corporations, and by that, doesn't matter the dollar amount. By that, I mean the number of people that are involved in your corporation, your LLC, your limited partnership, whatever. So if I've got a C Corp or I've got an LLC, and I want to have something like a vasectomy covered, I can do that through a bonus structure where I'm bonusing out cash, not paying for the vasectomy as a company, but as a company, the bonus becomes a deduction for the company, because it now becomes something that goes to you, and then you should be at a lower rate than corporately or LLC. But that's that's a blanket way through bonus structure to be able to, if you want to buy clothes, you want to buy jewelry, that kind of stuff, to be able to go in. But remember, you have to make that available. Whatever that thing is, that your bonus structure, you have to make that available for the other members.
I think they have people lining up for that benefit there.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, and I know you've talked about this before because I've heard you talk about it before. When you have a corporation, especially in my corporation, I have my sons and other family members as officers of the corporation. So we talked about how to write off your vacation if you've got a vacation home. But let's say you want to go someplace that you don't have a vacation home. You have to have a minimum of one meeting of your officers per year. It's required. You can actually have them quarterly as well. That's 4 vacations in a year that I'm able to do and do as a family vacation. Now, you can do this one of a couple different ways. You can have each of the officers who happen to be family members write off their vacation because they have to attend the officers meeting. I personally, because these are my children and my family, I like to pay for it. And I'm able to write that off by giving them a stipend for their travel and for their expenses to come to the officers meeting. And that, again, it comes out at the company level. It's not something I write off on my taxes at the end of the year. It's that much less money that I pay taxes on at the end of the year, because in a corporation, you don't pay taxes on income, you pay taxes on profit. So every dollar that comes into your hand is a dollar that's in your hand. Whatever I spend out of that dollar and I have as tax at the end of the year, that becomes taxable profit. So anything I spend, vacations, company car, anything else, it comes out pre-tax. So it's not a tax deduction. It's a amount of money that I don't pay taxes on at the end of the year. And there's all kinds of other great ways to benefit from that structure. So we're not even having to pay taxes at the end of the year by reinvesting those profits. Again, something for another show. But that is one of my favorites.
Remember, when you do that, when you're having a board meeting, you have to take minutes of the meeting, and that has to be in your logbook. This is the number one way that people get tripped up when they're out spending money corporately that is going to be written off. And they do that on a vacation. They say, oh, that's my board meeting, but they don't take minutes of the meeting, and then they don't put those in the corporate logbook. And that's an easy way, if you were to get audited, for that to be penetrated and disallowed. To penetrate the corporate veil and disallow that write-off is by not taking minutes. We were, and it's great this came up because over the weekend I was out in the garage doing some things, and I had moved a file folder box, and I was like, I wonder what's in there. I looked in, and there was a bunch of old corporate meetings, and my favorite was one that took place in Margaritaville in Jamaica. And when we got there, I was like, oh man, I didn't bring a notebook, so we could take meetings. We could take minutes for the meeting. Called the waitress over and said, hey, I just need something to write on, just some paper. It didn't have to be anything special, just something. And she comes back and she has a small paper bag, and she goes, this is the only thing paper that I could find. Will that work? And I was like, absolutely, that'll work. And I ran across that yesterday, and it's so cool to be able to have stuff like that, because we got back and my wife at the time said, hey, do you want me to type that up for the logbook? And I was like, absolutely not. It goes 3-hole punch in the logbook exactly like it is.
And really just a couple of quick reminders. These are things that you need to have. In Florida, for example, you have to submit that every single year. A lot of other states, you also have to submit all that information every single year to show that you're actually running a functioning corporation. Yep. We record our meetings, and we'll actually have probably 3 or 4 meetings, because that way we can justify taking an entire 7-day week. And we'll make it 3 different types of topics, and we'll record them, and I'll literally just plug it into DragonSpeak on the computer, and it'll type up the entire thing. Just give it the right format on DragonSpeak, and it'll type up the right thing. You might have to go through and put names to it, but it makes it really quick, really easy. And again, it's a requirement that most states have, that you do that anyway and put that in your corporate binder. We're coming up on a break, and then we're going to talk about some other great things that you can write off that people not only want but need, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
You are watching the Investor Guys podcast.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at CaymanK.com.
Absolution X. Lifestyle apparel like no other. Limited editions. Unique, exclusive designs. Seek your absolution. Get yours. Only at absolutionx.com.
Get ready for power, for success, for solutions and answers. It's all in one place. www.reallykevin.com. Education, opportunities, coaching, and so much more.
And we are back from our break. And while we were on our break, Bill took a quick extra break and brought back the paper bag that he was just mentioning from Margaritaville, where he did meeting minutes. You're out of breath. Where'd you go for that? Like Austin
I
or
was
something?
moving quickly. So it's this was in I said Jamaica, was in Grand Cayman. Board directors meeting, location Margaritaville / Paradise. I don't know if that was a euphemism or if that was an actual location. I know the Margaritaville was. Date, time, present. This was present was an important thing, because there were only my ex and I. We had 5 board members at the time. You have to have a quorum when you hold a board meeting. And so what we had done, we've done this several times before we left. This was a trip that we had taken, obviously, just for the 2 of us. And before we left, I put on probation 3 of the board members, suspended them temporarily, or 2 of them, excuse me, our youngest 2 kids. So that left the board at 3. And we were going to have 2 as a quorum if there's 3 on the board. So that's you got to make sure that that's one of those little things, little tricks of the trade that you got to have to make sure that it becomes a valid board meeting. And if there's anything actually funny on there, setting up the events for the coming year, going through all of our budget, reworking our home study course. There you go.
And just a quick note, UCC, which is Universal Corporations Code or Code of Corporations, and it applies to all 50 states, they allow for electronic meetings. So
Yeah.
even if it's just two people in the Grand Caymans, you can actually electronically, just through Skype or on the phone, speakerphone, whatever it is, include the missing board members rather than putting them on suspension or anything else. Just give them a quick call and let them be part of it. Because there are times that not everybody can get away for a vacation, even if it's a free vacation. So
that gives you a quorum.
What's that? And it gives you
That gives you a quorum, and that's all you got to make sure you're doing.
So some of the other things that are great, but you also need, that are tax deductions or pre-tax write-offs. Company cars, without a doubt. I have my company car. I have my cars, except for my collector's cars, which are in a trust, which is another type of deduction. I have my company cars that I purchase new. I purchase them under my company name. I even get financing for those vehicles in my corporation name. So I don't have to guarantee that. It helps build corporate finance. And the titles are literally registered in the name of my company. If I get pulled over by a police officer, God forbid, knock on wood, they're sitting there looking at the registration, which is in my company name. Great for liability. Most states don't charge you any differently for your registration and your tags if you have a company vehicle or personal vehicle, and you are buying and using a company car that you're not paying taxes for. Now, there's another aspect to this that I'm just going to touch on really quick because it's too much to cover right now. If you are making use of a company car and other company benefits at the corporate level legally that you are able to take as pre-tax write-offs, you're able to pay yourself less. If I don't have to buy a car, if I don't have to buy a lot of these things, company clothes, whatever it is, I can pay myself less. Now remember, corporations, they pay taxes on their profit. Individuals, we pay taxes on every dollar that comes in. We pay taxes on income. So to use an example, in California, every dollar that I get as income, I would have to pay 60 cents on that dollar to the government. So I'm making 40 cents on my dollar. So I'd rather make 40 cents on fewer dollars and be able to take my benefits by using company cars, company clothing, company housing, all those other things, and be able to not have that tax burden on a personal level, be able to push that off onto my companies. So something to keep in mind. Again, a lot more complex than that, but that's the big strokes of it. What did you want to add, Bill?
Just on the car thing, one of the things that you can do if you have multiple vehicles, then you can have a personal car and a corporate car so that you're not having to worry about keeping up with mileage and that kind of stuff. So if you could literally go buy a $1,000 car as your personal car, as long as it runs. So in Texas, we buy a lot of old pickup trucks. So as long as it's got a tag, it's registered, insured, all the normal stuff, it's a real vehicle, it functions, you can literally have that and drive it sometimes. I have some good friends that I shared this with, that a couple of them that are pilots out of American, and they were like, oh, never thought about that. And so they went and bought a car literally just to drive back and forth to the airport. And then they bought a much nicer car in their LLC name, because they all have side businesses. Typically, a lot of them do. So if you're going to have a $1,000 car and a $100,000 car, well, which one do you want to have as your business car? You want to have the $100,000 car as your business car, so that it can be paid for. And if you're like Kevin and I, we're working all the time. So we drive that car, and then you have a personal car, and that keeps you from having to keep up with mileage, which if you're like me, I'm not real good at that.
And we're running out of time, but my boats are our company assets. The corporations purchase my boats, and we use them for marketing and networking. So we will actually have meetings with clients and everything else on their boats. That makes it a perfectly justifiable write-off. When I was in California, there was a realtor who had jet skis, and he had his signs on the fronts of his jet skis. And I had a conversation with him one afternoon, and he writes his jet skis off because they are advertising and marketing. So he's got the signs on his jet skis, and he goes out and he rides those things all the time. So he's able to write off the cost of his fuel. He's able to write off the cost of the jet ski and the maintenance because it's marketing. And theoretically, he could even pay himself to be out there riding the thing because he's working. So there are all kinds of great loopholes. Make sure you do it the right way. Make sure you do it legally. But our system has been set up to help the investor and to help the business owner. Make sure you learn how to do that and take advantage of it. We're running out of time because we could talk about this all day long, but we will see you on our next installment of the Investor Guys podcast. Bill, have a great day.
You too, sir.
The rest of you,
everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Joining us. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Investor Guys podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest trends and insights in the world of real estate investing. Also, don't forget to check us out and see all of our episodes at theinvestorguyspodcast.com. Email us, contact@investorguyspodcast.com. Remember, the key to financial success lies in staying informed and taking action. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, happy investing.